Greetings. This is Timothy in our twice monthly public humiliation demo, where I attempt to provide something useful in order to have a sense of purpose and meaning to live my life using techniques that nobody in the world seems to know or understand as a thin guise to cover up my own pathologies. You know, I used to do these videos and pour a tremendous amount of time and dedication. Sometimes I would shoot the video and I would even redo it the next day and spend dozens of hours every month working on these videos. And it just must be a part of the divine occurrence of this year, which is forcing so much breakdown of priorities and how we lived our life and how we earn our money. I just don't simply have a choice but to have this conversation with you as free-flowingly and openly as we can, and we'll see what happens. Most people aren't going to listen to this. They're just going to look at my cover image, and so we'll make some really good faces for that cover image. This is what most people see. Today's new moon is in Virgo. Virgo season is different for all of us, depending on unique circumstance and our individuality. Let me attempt to reflect some collective dynamics back. August of 2021 was an incredibly charged, fast-paced, and in many cases, meltdown, breakdown type of month. There's such a significant dimensional shift ongoing with these huge Uranus Aquarius themes. We simply cannot know or understand the immensity of change that's going on, the shifting of timelines. When we are breaking into the future so quickly, the future comes in before we recognize it. So we've all been dealing with themes of PTSD and how do we cope and how have we coped in this world that is considerably medieval, and we are those that are bringing this world out of a medieval period into a period where hopefully we can respect one another and our humanity, because this has not historically been the case. I am more and more recognizing that at the root of this work and this channel, what we are doing together, me being the announcer and you being the mirror and us reflecting these things back and having conversations, this is about changing spiritual paradigms. That's the work that we're doing by talking about what we're living using the objective lens of astrology, so to understand life and nature better than the schools of thought and the systems that we've had handed down to us. Astrology is a way to actually use our experience to understand life, not simply by taking my word for it or another person's word for it, but to truly see and comprehend what are the laws of nature, what is our relationship to the earth, why is the earth going through what it's going through at this time, and how can we embrace the times of the earth in the most healthy, respectful way, so that way, hopefully, we can take things into the future. Now, there is so much that has been disturbed and unsettled as we're entering into September, and some of the intention of this moon in today. This new moon has an opportunity to more so ground, settle down, come back into our bodies, come back into our human experience, our little me experience, and in many respects, this is the necessary antidote in medicine to pull out of the collective chaos of which we have all been experiencing very greatly this year of 2021 with the moon's nodes and mutable signs, especially my sensitive souls, for which I do this work largely for. I'm actually recognizing that we feel and experience the world more because a huge percentage of the population is actually avoiding and dissociating from their real lived experience. Because a huge percentage of the population is living in a fantasy, especially at this time, because fundamental reality, and again, this has to do with belief systems, our fundamental comprehension of what is life is changing collectively. This is what it means to be in an age shift. There is collective chaos. The majority of people have no ground to stand on. Therefore, the only way to cope is to go crazy, to create fantasies, to keep enabling this sense of a world that doesn't really exist anymore. Therefore, those of us who are consciously aware of the times, working to get our feet back on the earth, which is the process for each and every one of us collectively, we are feeling and living the world's birthing, dying, processing, and digesting more on behalf of the collective. In the new moon today is an opportunity to really respect this. We can honor and need to honor our boundaries. Virgo has so much to do with this realistic comprehension of our reality, which means we have limits. Nobody is perfect. Nobody's getting it perfectly, ever. And we therefore have to have a huge amount of forgiveness and acceptance of our real, lived, human experience. This is where Virgo, as a season, is very, very different depending on circumstance and the individual. I know quite a number of highly Virgonian souls that thrive in energies like this because they have already for lifetimes worked to remove the egoic distraction and the clutter from their own system. And therefore, Virgo season is a time where we are clear, we're cleaning, everything is spacious, everything is organized. This season of Virgo, which occurs September time every year. In the Northern Hemisphere, this is the beginning of fall season. And I like to describe this, we may remember when we were kids going to school, how I loved school. Just kidding. But before we got to school and realized what meat factory it is, turning us all into this processed, easily consumable capitalist slavery, we get excited. We sharpen our pencils, we prepare our notebooks, we get our school supplies, we get organized. There's that excitement to learn. There's that excitement that we can have mentorship. We can be apprenticing. This is all Virgo stuff. So, point is, highly Virgo souls that have cleared themselves of egoic distraction can really thrive in these energies. These are our natural healers, our medicine women, our charitable-oriented healers and helpers. The key to Virgo is in recognizing that our life is about service. It's about refining. We're constantly polishing the mirror. And that's what allows us to hone our individuality into something that is beneficial to the whole, to the world. And that takes time. That takes time to refine. Some of us souls get a little bit more excited during Leo period, in which case the following season of Virgo can be much more humbling. Humbling. We develop humility sometimes through the experience of humiliation. And humiliation, it's tough, right? It doesn't feel good when we're going through a humiliating experience. But these are the experiences that also relieve ourselves from the burden of expectation that we should be all put together, or that we should be all perfect, or that we should be all out there in front walking with the spotlight on us because that's how we share our role modeling to the rest of the world. And we should do that, but when we step into that spotlight, we also invite the feedback, the criticism, the responses of others. And this is largely our relationship between Sun and Mercury, Leo and Virgo. So inherent in this new moon, and I'm going to suggest a lot of wonderful practices and meditations we can all be getting into today. This is a wonderful new moon for my friendly witches and healers to get very, very procedural and to do some really wonderful magic. This is, of course, what Virgo thrives in. You know, the high priestesses of the Roman period and other cultures, it's oftentimes incredibly procedural and ritualistic, and in that, intentional. And through that focus and devotion and intentional process, there's a tremendous amount of healing that can come through the magic. Any new moon is a seed sowing opportunity. This is a new moon to create the healthy boundaries, the healthy standards, us being centered in our authentic human role, in our authentic human service, which is ultimately the only means to true enjoyment. With the new moon opposite to Neptune, there's a wonderful opportunity to sow seeds for these types of spiritual realizations and reflections that can come to us all through this next month and very much through the reflection of the other. Some very, very healing, therapeutic conversation coming up these weeks, while Mercury, the ruler of Virgo, transits Libra opposite to Chiron. Through the mirror of relationship, even just bouncing our ideas, our sentiments, our inadequacies, our fears, the parts of ourself that we're afraid of airing. This is a wonderful opportunity to seek real connection, validation, and healing through a mutual recognition that we are human. We're not born and then hit the ground running. We are meant to learn through the experience of what we will perceive as failure. And this is when we have options and we sense that we choose the wrong thing, and then we notice what happens as a repercussion, and that can be quite humbling. This is not inherently wrong. Any teacher, any healer, I recognize true teachers and healers through their constant sense of nagging frustration that what they're doing is not good enough, not perfect enough. The real teachers and healers honestly have a hard time putting themselves out there. A number of them have unconscious past lives of being strung up the last time they did put themselves out there, the most powerful healers, right? So this sense of inadequacy, failure, humility, being small, being embarrassed, being seen for our imperfections is healthy. And it's where we can show up for one another with a great deal of support by allowing each other to go through this process. And it's okay. It is not failure. It's all feedback. We want to be firing arrows at this so-called target. And we want arrows to miss just as much as we want arrows to hit the target. So that way we can learn what is the target. So new moon quincunx to Chiron can be cringy. We can really feel that sense, and I've heard this from people recently, like what feels not good right now, something that feels a little icky, something that doesn't really feel right, you know? Quincunx to Chiron is uncomfortable. It's like being on the operating table and having everything opened up and we feel exposed, and you know, this is because stuff is moving around. It's a tremendously healing lunar cycle ahead of us. And healing isn't always comfortable. Virgo identifies what is not working. Humility, inadequacy, shame, these are words that are simply coming from a level of awareness and identification of what's not working. The problem, and this is again what we're actually doing in these videos. Those of you who have been tuning to me and following these videos for some time, this is transforming. I want you to transform through these reflections because we are together evolving the spiritual paradigm. We have to change these Christian ideologies of original sin. That because we make mistakes sometimes we're evil or we're wrong or we're sinning or we've missed the mark. And so we're going to not be rewarded after our death. so much shame and inadequacy simply because we're born human. We're born with sexual nature. We're born with all sorts of quirks that we don't necessarily have support in exploring and in embracing as being natural, healthy, human. Shadow Virgo has this sense of impurity, this taintedness, the sense that we're wrong, we're distorted, we're off, we're impure, we're unclean. What Virgo actually does is simply bring healing awareness to the places that need experimentation and improvement. When we break our arm, we feel pain. It's not fun to feel pain. We don't want to feel pain, but the feeling of pain is not a sign that we've spiritually failed. It means that our awareness is being brought to a part that's broken. And therefore, we send love and support to the parts that are broken. We're not going to be playing baseball when we break our arm. We're going to be providing extra care to our arm by putting it into a cast and then allowing it to go through its own healing process. So we can assume that each and every one of us may get some of these experiences. For some of us, again, depending on our propensities, it's a little bit more less of a big deal than others. But this is just like I showed up to the meeting 4 hours early. And oh, hey, everybody. Oh, you just walked in while I just stepped out of the shower naked. And yes, I wear a swim cap when I'm in the shower, and I don't think it's weird. I pretend that I'm swimming. But it's a little bit embarrassing to have you walk in on this particular moment. Or, hi, Caitlin. Oh, your name's Caitlin. Oh, shit. You told me that a million times over. It's like we get this feedback, and this is where it's important to simply allow for the human experience, and it's not a big deal. This brings us back to our center, which is to be a human being. There is a sense of being anchored in safety in the mundane, that we are going through these rhythms and these schedules in a way that can help us to embrace the little me. And when we embrace the little me, we remove these egoic blockages that actually stutter our expression. And then the expression becomes more fluid, more authentic, more healing in its essence, by allowing for this kind of nonchalantness that comes out of the actual grist-in-the-mill experience of life, which will be known and familiar to each and every soul. So again, a tremendously healing new moon. The new moon in Virgo is conjoined asteroid Hygienia. There's just so much opportunity for us to really get healthy in relationship to ourself, body, diet, health, schedule, but also how ourself as a unique individual is in relationship to the world, to get that relationship as healthy, as clear, as refined, and therefore as useful and effective as possible. For example, personal example is, for so many years, like I said at the beginning of this video, I would just pour a ridiculous amount of time and energy into astrology because I had this sense that astrology was the future, and that this was a medicine that could save humanity and save the world. And this is true, but it's such a burden to carry this on an individual level in a time like this where, again, most people aren't even going to listen to the words I say. They're more interested in how I'm coming off, or, the lingo. And it's just not that big of a deal, is it? And when things become less big of a deal, that's when the magic, the channeling, the healing energies start to flow. And we no longer have to drive this machine forward all by ourselves. We get to settle down and relax into a divine flow. This is the divine feminine that we are always talking about. And then we're driven by these patriarchal standards that, seriously, every single person on the planet, our soul has like layer after layer after layer of medieval Christian spiritual conditioning, of patriarchal society, military society, war society. I mean, there's so many layers of this conditioning. It goes into a black hole where we can't even see the bottom of the barrel. That's the world in which we live. That's again why the most important thing we can use astrology to do is to transform our spiritual paradigm, to actually know who we are, what we're working with, and what's right in front of our own eyeballs. That's really, really what we can use astrology to do. But maybe I don't have to spend so many hours to stop the unnatural pauses, because who cares? That's this reality that's dawning that I'm attempting in an extremely experimental way to maneuver, is don't really care about the achievement-driven reality anymore. I've said it a million times in these videos, the famous pop astrologers, some of the shittiest astrologers out there, people are going to get the medicine that are looking for it. And if we use the old capitalistic-driven model to do anything, we're just going to recreate the same problems again and again and again. And you know what? Oh, I think I'm hearing some feedback here. This may be a familiar experience for many of us right now. Let's talk some more astrology for September. It's a very Venus month. Venus was just square to Pluto yesterday, the 5th. Venus will square Saturn on September 17th and go opposite to Uranus on the 23rd. Well, what does Venus have fundamentally to do? All reciprocation, the laws of give and take. Venus rules relationship. Venus rules resources. Venus rules money. Money. What keeps us enslaved to the old patriarchal system on nearly every single dimension is money. You see, the only way we're going to unplug from this medieval cesspool that is the collective and the world is to pull ourselves out of the frying pan. And what I am continuously observing time and time and time again as what prevents us from coming out of the frying pan is us selling our soul and conforming to the old standards which we believe we don't have a solution or a remedy to escape from. I've got to pay the bills. Even in relationships. Our relationships are, for the most part, completely security driven. I need this person in my life because I get this, and if I didn't get this, security-driven relationships, security-driven jobs, everyone is enslaved because we have not known that creative solutions are possible. These societal prisons were successful in enslaving the people. If we have hierarchical standards where person on top of the pyramid creates all the rules and there's a trickle down, and sorry, you only get what trickles down, what options do we have? We're all beggars, are we not? If there's any type of passion and inspiration, I hope comes through these videos. I hope it is the passion and excitement that can lead to a realization that we're powerful enough to break out. It's going to take creative innovation. It's going to require us thinking differently. It's going to require our trust that another world is possible. And you know what I see? I see everybody talking about the new world and then conforming to the old world out of fear. And you know what's going to be scary? When we open up our wallet and a fly comes out. But we may need to go through that experience enough to come out of prison. And that takes some risks. Whatever support we can seek to come out of that level of prison, this is the time. How can we create new ways of exchanging resources so we are supported to not sell our soul? We can do it. It's going to require the accountability and the responsibility to kind of pull ourselves out. And it is a little bit easier said than done. We're going to have some conversations. There's a lot of opportunity for this type of coming to terms with reality, addressing the very real limitations that we do have. Wouldn't it be nice if we could show up and save everybody? It's not possible. My Virgo medicine that I like to depart when it's useful to individuals in readings is what they tell us when there's an issue on the airplane and the oxygen masks come down from the ceiling. They say on the overhead, put that oxygen mask on your own face, even before you put that mask on your own child. We have limitations. It's always the most maternal and compassionate souls that really struggle with this realization and reality. How can we expect to help anybody else if we ourselves cannot breathe? This world is a medieval cesspool. It's going to continue to recycle the patterns of the past until we pull ourselves out of the frying pan. Our societal structures aren't designed to change. They're designed to, like a mechanism, very, very, very slowly evolve through this eternal pendulum swinging back between the dynamic tension of the past and the future, which is what we, in our overly moralistic and fearful, conditioned, again, Christian conditioning, we see this as the swinging between good and evil. But when we get into the system and try to fight evil in this, use the system that's broken and debate with rules that are biased, we're just going to continue to get manipulated and strung along and thrown under the bus. Are we not? So, we have to get ourselves the oxygen first. We have to get ourselves out of the frying pan into safe ground first. Once we can breathe effectively, we can then start to lay the underground railroad to bring others out to the surface. But we have to put the oxygen mask on our own face even before we put that mask on our own child. And this is, again, the necessary humility to understand our real world limitations. The reason why everybody's talking about change and nobody's actually doing anything about it is because people don't have the energy or the resources to. It's a giant cop-out. It's a giant excuse to enable what's cutting us off from being more powerful, healthy individuals. So money, relationship, this is where we're experiencing a tremendous tension at this time, and we need to embrace the tension as the opportunity to learn and grow. We have to make some adjustments here. We can't be doing the give and take of resources that in an invisible and beneath the surface type of way is just like getting bled out as a soul. And we're doing the right thing, we're being a good person, we're taking care of the family, we're taking care of our children, we're taking care of our partner. Is it working? Where can we make some adjustments? Where can we request more support? You know, this is going to take us into this next year where the North Node will transit Taurus from 2022 into 2023. And you know what I highly suspect? That COVID's not going to go away. And there is a need to return to the earth to return to our center, to return to a baseline simplification. That is, how do we get our base level needs? Taurus is base level survival. Where do we get our food? Where do we get our water? Do we have shelter? Is it a peaceful environment that can allow for the recovery that is a necessary chapter of our healing once we've pulled ourselves out of the frying pan? Oh yeah. Next year, North nodes in Taurus, South nodes in Scorpio, we're all going to be getting an experience of how can we get ourselves out of the frying pan. It's time to talk about it now. I'm the astrologer who's supposed to know the future and have the heads up. So now you're getting it. We need to create support systems. We need to have community. We need to have these support systems and communities outside of the society that oppresses us. We always think that Jeff Bezos and the 1% is going to change it for us, and we declare war on them as if that's going to work. It isn't. It's just a waste of time. None of those 1%ers, the Illuminati, that, by the way, is extraordinarily smaller than the amount of collective hype that we project onto the Illuminati, because we've been trained to give our power away. We don't need them. We don't need them. We declare war on them and then depend on them. It's irresponsible. It's irresponsible to think that oppressors are going to stop oppressing. There's always going to be these dynamics on the earth and the collective, and it doesn't have to be a ghost story. It's not spooky. It's not scary. Everyone's so terrified this year. It's just disappointing. This is why I'm not writing notes for these videos. Everyone's fucking crazy. It doesn't even matter. I mean, I can't tell you how much of a deflation, and this is, again, a very Leo person going through humbling experiences throughout my life, talking about 2020 for years before it happened, talking about this huge change before it happened, and then it happens and everybody just goes back into their crazy, delusional Christian era belief systems anyways. So, I mean, I'm speaking to like several people all the time and being judged by the majority, and that's just how it is. But there are reasons people are in denial and avoiding this responsibility that I'm actually asking of you. Don't conform. And this is easier said than done. It's like, again, we open the wall, then a fly comes out, we got to do something to pay the bills. Well, we've got to figure out a solution here. This is why, part of why I've created this online community, which is, by the way, free to join. These YouTube videos are free. Is to put out just a call. You know, these videos are just the most front-facing thing I do, and it's the most depressing work I do because it's the most front-facing thing that you do. It's like going on Facebook. If you put a post on Facebook, it's just like shouting into the wind. It's just like throwing something into the void, right? So, you know, I came up here to Asheville, wanted to be up here for years and years, because this is where all the astrology folk, and then I arrived 2 weeks before COVID. And I've been here for almost 2 years in complete isolation. And what's the experience? All right, this is how it's going to be. We won't save the entire society that's just like a sinking ship. Yeah. It's going to be smaller. And that's, I guess, where this huge rant is leading, is we need to not conform and sell our souls. There's going to be a lot of refining and sifting through things in ourselves too, right? These spiritual belief systems are the ones that make us feel horrible and inadequate when we do something that's right and healthy, because we're humans. Such as, I'm in Asheville, such as, you know, it's like we've had Victorian-era relationships for centuries. This is what marriage is. I'll trade my goats for your daughter, so that way your daughter will feed my son. As oriented towards physical survival, militant society, the nuclear family was the death of community. The nuclear family was the death of villages, the death of family support. It's all reinforcing this military society. So, I mean, it's not going to look pretty. And we can't just send out a lightning bolt. And this is what I see everybody doing all the time, especially spiritually evolved souls. It's like we have these one-liners that we think is just going to sink through into people. No, we have to live what we preach. We've got to create the new world and new system outside of society. First, we got to break free of society. It's okay to start small. Virgo wisdom. New moon in Virgo trine to Uranus in Taurus. The wisdom is less is more. The wisdom is we live more rich and abundant seeming lives, even if we are poorer and less successful. Because everything that we've been trained and taught is success is everything that is killing our world. We can't prioritize or focus on what's important because we're so distracted by a medieval era that behaves like a prison guard. And that prison guard is going to tell us 1,000,000 times over, you're in prison, you can't leave, I'm going to give you some work and do your assembly line factory job. Forever. I mean, it's like even teachers who love to teach their students go to school and become oppressed by their principals, right? It's just like what is ingrained in the fabric of this reality, truly. This is another suggestion I've been really reflecting on. And I know this video is a little bit more wafty than usual, but that's also the times we're going through. It's an in-between period. We'll talk with a little bit more direction in the next video, but we're kind of in between. August, incredibly destabilizing, sudden unexpected shocks, sudden dimensional shifts, and now it's like, whoa, how do we get back? How do we get back on our feet? What plates are we going to keep spinning? What plates need to fall down and break? But there's going to be so much that allows us to step out of this prison society by returning to the earth. And the wisdom of the earth is that simple, easy does it. Less is more. Start small, start local. Start talking to your surrounding village and community, because this is where we will get security. We're not going to get security from the giant corporations. We're not going to get security from the government. Have we not noticed this yet? Where can we seek safe space where we are not being influenced by these powers? There is no scary force that is preventing us from getting to the safe space. We have to cut out these debilitating beliefs before we will even know it's possible to do anything. I have been so regularly speaking out to decondition the ghost stories that is what everybody's passing around right now. And I wonder why I don't care to do these videos much anymore. In a Virgo type of way, this works useful if it simply helps one person out. Because again, it's for my own healing and pathology and coping as well. So, guess we could just say I'm doing this for me. That's fine. Just to have a space to shit out my thoughts, or else I'd go crazy, right? I'm shooting this video live. Any questions? I'd like to do more interactive stuff. I watched Bo Burnham's Inside on Netflix. For those of you who've been experiencing isolation with all this Aquarius, it's really helpful comedic medicine. He was born the same year as me, just a couple months away, so I very much relate to this individual. So someone asked, when will the isolation be easing up? This is a funny little reflection I was thinking about. You know, it's like 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019. One of the most common questions that astrologers always get, especially always used to get this one, is when are things going to get easier? When are things going to lighten up? Everyone's asking these questions in 2017 and 2018. I used to just tell people it's the wrong question. When are things going to lighten up? It's not how things work. We have to embrace what is the circumstance that we're born into. This is what evolutionary astrology does that I've seen nothing else do to the same degree and accuracy. To understand why and what is the circumstance of the end times. And these themes aren't going to just lighten up. Again, the people that are more sensitive are actually processing and more aware of the underlying reality. We need to create systems, structures, and supports that honors us being those people. It's not about it getting easier. It's about us embracing the work. And yes, we can also say that the season of isolation will pass when Saturn leaves Aquarius. So, all right. I'll bring myself back down as well. Because, yes, this is a collective theme right now. But it is also a spiritual reality. Each and every one of us is an organ of the collective macroorganism. Each and every one of us, as a unique organ, has a unique process in the overall macroorganism. This is a part of what spiritually evolving souls can be really tuning into in ways that's going to completely transform our spiritual paradigm and our understanding of reality, because the level of synchronicity goes beyond, oh, it's woo-woo, it's magic. No, the synchronicity exists for reasons. The level of interconnectivity that we have and will be increasingly sharing in increasingly mind-blowing ways is true, is reality. So I might add that the experience of isolation, which can be so up for us sensitive souls at this time, is also to lead us into how can we connect in new and different ways. Sure, we could all be Facebook messaging each other all day long. Is that really satisfying? Does that really allow for intimate connection, or does it reinforce isolation? And if our attempts are in vain and actually creating more of what we're trying to get away from, well, in a Virgo type of way, it's not failure, it's feedback. I can't believe the amount of lacking innovation in the internet. As an Aquarian soul myself from the future, teleportation device, entering into your reality to be a quickening agent. I was so excited with the takeoff of the internet. These were very Aquarian years. Neptune and Uranus transiting Aquarius, I guess it would have been over a decade ago, back to closer to 2 decades ago. Yeah, no, I guess it's 1 to 2 decades ago, and the internet's taking off, right? But the innovation of the internet hit a hard wall with Facebook and these corporate media giants. And what happened is the innovating, creative, community-oriented internet got bottlenecked by capitalism. And why the fuck has not more people just clearly this is what's happened? Facebook bought Instagram. Yeah, it's all bullshit. But it has completely bottlenecked the internet's creativity. I mean, Facebook is designed to be a creativity killer. It is the perfect symbolic reflection of our world and society. And trust me, that's what Facebook is. It is the way for us to use Aquarian technology to step into the cesspool, right? And sensitive souls can really see that. But I mean, even MySpace, and this is, I know millennial nerdy, but it's like you could create so much more. You could actually code and use HTML and bring in all sorts of stuff. And I was also a Flash animator. I did animation before Astrology. A couple decades ago, there was internet that had animation and media and music and games, and it was all interwoven, and artists could create their own stuff in super interactive, stimulating ways. And then Apple created the iPhone and said, well, fuck Flash. And then a couple of years ago, Flash was made extinct, and I can't even play or share my old animations anymore. I mean, come on. These are just little personal examples, but we have to understand that this pattern is we discover something new and then we sell out. We take one step forward and two steps back. We can't sell out anymore. We can't conform anymore. The allergic reaction response that we're going to have is going to become increasingly severe. And for some of us, I don't even know if there's a choice. We have to go through the inevitability of developing that allergic reaction and then getting fired out in the opposite direction. That's okay. That's the process for a lot of us, you know? Oh shit, I've got no way forward, so I got to go back. Oh shit. I can't go back either. You know, I mean, that's the times we're living in. This conversation could go on forever, but I'm going to work on wrapping it up, and I would like to create more opportunities to continue these conversations in more interactive style like this, because I am seeing some comments, and we'll see how we can make that interaction more intimate in the future. For those of you souls that are really struggling, I want to acknowledge and commend you for being in the struggle. Everyone who's tuning into this, we are working together to change our reality via uprooting the old spiritual, self-flagellating Christian paradigm, which you didn't have to go to church to have this deeply rooted in your soul. We're changing this by saying, those of us that are struggling, good. We weren't supposed to have discovered some formula that makes our life perfect. And we're failures because we haven't discovered that formula yet. It's not reality. We don't have to carry that. I commend those of you who are in the real world struggle, because the struggle is your contribution to the evolution of the species. The species is creating these struggles on the individual level because that's how our species evolves. Who's talking about this stuff? Those who are most sensitive and aware of their struggles are those who are self-initiating into being unique individual organs with unique individual functions, which is our contribution back to the collective. But guess what? That doesn't get served to us on a silver platter. It's a self-discovery process, because we're not doing the same process that everybody else is doing. The kidneys don't emulate the lungs. The lungs are not emulating the small intestine. They're very, very different. And the failure for the lungs is not the failure for the kidney. And the failure for the kidney is not the failure for the small intestine. I think you get what I'm saying. Thank you for being the pioneering souls that are unwilling to forget about how stressful life is on this planet at this time. It is too burdensome for the majority of people because the underlying spiritual paradigm is transforming, which is how we create our collective reality. Our collective reality is born out of our collective mythos, our collective story. And by the way, our collective mythos, which I'll be sharing increasingly, is we demonize the earth and our bodies and our senses and our authentic human reality. We think we're all supposed to be Jesus and walk on water. The majority of people cannot begin to process or comprehend the enormous amount of collective chaos as the collective belief system is changing, because it would catalyze an ego suicide that would cause mass hysteria. People would go crazy if they were all diving into the deep end that many of us are. Because we're learning to develop a trust and a connection to something different than the one that we were trained to trust and connect from our childhoods onward. The divine feminine is simply mystery, inconceivable. The divine mother is saying you can do less and more will result. You can let go and be more so carried. You can trust your heart and the universe will provide. And in a Virgo type of way, we cannot simply be idealistic or naive at the same time and throw ourselves to the wolves or simply walk back into the woods. Oh, society is so terrible. We'll just walk into the woods and then we're starving and we don't know. You know, it's going to be a balance that we're all being asked this forthcoming month in a tremendously healing and inspiring way. The balance between our very real human limitations, what we can do, and the unique organ that we were born to be, Virgo. And how in surrendering to that and trusting that process and trusting the process that is our unique life and experience, we can be more so carried. We can forgive ourselves when there are hiccups and humiliations and bumps and stutters along the way. Because we were meant to experience those things. We came here to experience those things, and what we learn to develop is a taste for those things. This is really advanced now, but I'm going to conclude with this note because it is so vital to so many of our spiritual progression. We're learning to evaluate this Pisces-Virgo polarity, the difference between unhealthy sacrifice, idealistic love where we put ourselves last and we get whipped around by the world, giving with no return, and that being the right thing to do, or being the savior, or being the good guy. That versus a type of spiritual masochism that's of a very, very, very advanced and higher taste, which is the soul develops a taste for coming in and experiencing the suffering that will occur on this earth. This earth is Taurus, opposite polarity Scorpio. We experience the full spectrum, Scorpio, hell realm and heaven realm, Taurus, on this planet Earth. It's not a problem, it's what we came to experience. We develop a spiritual taste for the full spectrum because it is both the heaven and the hell that awakens our heart to compassion. The personal experience of suffering, the hiccups, the bumps, the humiliations, awakens us to forgiveness and compassion of our very own self. We're not meant to declare war on evil as if evil were our oppressor instead of a part of the recipe. And we are liberating ourselves by creating the safe space, the distance from the dark places, I should say the corrupt places, where there is so much abuse, so much recycling of patriarchy. We have to pull ourselves out of the frying pan. The chemical reactions on the earth is just the necessary reaction to get us to recognize what we need. It's not a war between good and evil. It is an objective reflection of what's missing and what is needed. So please, y'all are taking on a lot right now. It is what we need to jumpstart the future, because many of us were born, all of us were born in the medieval era. And we were trained with medieval dark age prescriptions and conditioning. This is the world that you're supposed to live in, and it's called prison, and it's called hell. And we are the dimensional bridgers, the teleportation devices, and the quickening agents that's bringing in an entirely different reality. One where we are not simply in some kind of holy crusade, but a reality where we are objectively looking at ourselves, objectively looking at the species, objectively looking at humanity, and through that objective seeing, we are learning what is nature, what is truth, what is love, what is this thing called evolution, how does it work, where is it leading us, and how can we create a reality that brings in this nature as to why we're alive, why we're born, why we die, why we have relationship. We can change how we exchange energy, Venus, relationship, money, resources, to honor this new reality that for each and every one of us, we need to pioneer by going against the grain. My heart goes out to each and every one of you. Thank you so much. I look forward to speaking to you in about a couple weeks. As always, take care.